Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix is the next step in my adventure to play through the Kingdom Hearts series. Though this next step was a bit rougher to take. When I play Kingdom Hearts, I always have to be in a certain mood. And while I mostly enjoy playing Kingdom Hearts games, there's always this weird tug of war type of struggle that I have to face. This is why I take a step back from the series every time I complete a game. Especially after Kingdom Hearts 2.5 Final Mix, it was good to take a step back and wait before continuing. It closed a big story arc and it was just a lot to take in, and by doing so, the next game would also get a better and fair chance, as it otherwise might get overshadowed by one of the best Kingdom Hearts games in the series. But I don't need to explain that taking the next step in an adventure like this is also really exciting. Therefore, it's sometimes hard to take a step back as curiosity builds up to find out how the story will continue. Still, I found it more important that every game in the series gets a fair chance, even though it's sometimes very difficult to do. So let's find out how Birth by Sleep continues the Kingdom Hearts story, but more importantly, let's find out if it's a good game. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep begins as every Kingdom Hearts game so far, an opening with the typical Square Enix detailed graphics. The opening is backed by the same song as in Kingdom Hearts 1's opening, Simple and Clean by Hikaru Utada. Personally, I liked the opening song of Kingdom Hearts 2 more, but it was nice to hear Simple and Clean once again. And while I got excited to play the game while watching the opening, it doesn't work completely. The opening hints at plot points and twists, which normally is nothing weird or bad. This actually happens a lot in games and series with openings. It adds a fun little after experience as you now understand the hints the opening drops. But the hints the Birth by Sleep opening drops are straightforward, and if you have the basic knowledge on what Kingdom Hearts is all about, then you have no problem understanding the imagery the opening shows. After the opening, the story immediately takes off, introducing the main villain and the three main characters. The story takes place 10 years before Kingdom Hearts 1 and puts the focus on the origin of the series and especially puts the spotlight on the villain of the Kingdom Hearts series. I was surprised by this direction, as so far the Kingdom Hearts series only focused on moving forward. What was even a bigger surprise was that the same story is told from 3 different point of views. You will play through the game 3 times, each playthrough for a different character. You see the same events unfold 3 times, but every playthrough shows you a different side of the same story. While the characters rarely share screen time, their actions align and interact with each other throughout the game. It's a very tricky way of presenting the story, but ultimately the game succeeds in this aspect. Most of these events happen in the Disney worlds, and every time I completed one with a character, I couldn't wait to see the point of view from the other characters. Which didn't take long, as the pacing of the story is good, but fast. The game rarely slows down and keeps you constantly moving forward, keeping your curiosity and interest in the story, even though it's a very simple one. At the start you can choose which character you would like to follow first, but I would recommend to start on the top of the list that the game gives you by default. So you first follow Terra, who failed becoming a Keyblade Master and seeks Master Xehanort for help so that he can control the darkness inside his heart. Meanwhile, Ventus chases Terra, trying to support and help his friend, while Aqua succeeded in becoming a Keyblade Master and gets tasked to bring Ventus back to the Order while keeping an eye on Terra. I really like the idea of the story, and especially its presentation stands out, as that is something we don't see very often. However, the game's writing is lacking at times. Our 3 characters supposed to be best friends, but I didn't really believe in their friendship for most of the time. Having characters say, "Hey, we are best friends," doesn't make them best friends in my opinion. In the rare cases that they share screen time, they act and behave in such a way that it even strengthens my disbelief in their friendship. Terra clearly is set up from the start to struggle with his current situation. Therefore he pushes everyone away and makes more mistakes, yet his allegedly best friends don't really fight that behavior and let themselves be pushed away very easily. The other characters even copy this behavior and making them feel further apart from being best friends. Maybe it's just me and how I see the term best friends, as when I see one of my best friends struggle or make mistakes, I will not let myself get pushed away that easily. And the side characters make things worse at times, as they tell you, the player, who the characters are supposed to be. Coming back to my example of Terra, according to his master, he has a hunger for more power, yet I failed to see this through any of his actions in the game. He actually seems like a good guy, making mistakes by accident and tries to make up for them. There's no trace of him being obsessed with power, yet the writer feels the need to tell me he is. It creates a disconnection between the character's actions and writing. If you want him to be a character that hungers for more power, show it in his actions. Don't have a side character tell me this as a side note, while it clearly contradicts his actions. While I like the idea of the story presentation, it's mostly wasted as the writing constantly contradicts itself and it falls flat because of that. Characters are interesting and the start of the story is really good, but as I progressed through the game, I started to get annoyed by all the contradictions. The characters barely share any screen time and their behavior made it hard to believe their friendship, ultimately missing one of the key elements of the Kingdom Hearts series. Luckily, the overarching story was again really good and interesting. The Kingdom Hearts series focuses on the battle of light versus darkness, which got a lot of attention in this game. While they don't explain everything and only explore the basic things, it still felt nice to get some more understanding of the Kingdom Hearts universe, which was something that I was really looking for. One of my favorite new additions to the Kingdom Hearts universe is a character that constantly holds monologues on how the light must extinguish the darkness and how he failed as a master. It's even funny as that character is voiced by Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, which also makes it pretty ironic considering his connection to Star Wars that he, of all people, holds such monologues. It made me laugh as a Star Wars fan and made me realize that this game, and the series in general, oddly enough, has a lot of similarities to Star Wars. But even the overall story had its frustrating moments, as it sometimes felt like we were backtracking topics that were already discussed in full. For the chronological order of the story this makes sense, but something as using the darkness for good is a thing that Riku established all the way back in Chain of Memories. It's mostly frustrating as you basically see the characters walk into a trap. It makes sense and it doesn't break the game, yet I wish they added something new to these topics than just repeating them. However, it's not as nearly as frustrating as the combat, cause oh boy, Square Enix did it again. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is Square Enix's next attempt to reinvent the wheel for Kingdom Hearts. It's again hack and slash, but it feels like it tries to combine all the previous games into it as well. It's interesting to say the least, but mostly frustrating. The basics of the combat work just fine for most of the time. It's when you dive deeper into it that the combat shows its problems. They limited the amount of skills, magic spells, summons and transformations in your battle menu, which is good. However, the progression of these skills and everything else is overly complicated. You got 3 types of list where you can equip your skills. The game calls it decks like it's some kind of card game, and I don't know why. They are lists where only one really matters, as that is where you will put your active skills in. The other one is for passive and mobility skills, and the other is just your special attack. At the start you have a small group of skills, and as you fight in the game they level up. Once they are max level you can combine 2 skills to create a new one. This idea is pretty nice, it encourages you to use multiple skills and to make combinations with them to gain more powerful ones. However, every time you create a combination you will lose the skills you combine. This causes multiple problems, one being the most obvious one, and that is that it can cause progression setbacks. For example, you combine 2 skills you enjoy using, creating a new skill that you don't enjoy using. There's no undo button and now you lost 2 max level skills and gained one you are not going to use. You can get your old skills back by buying them from a store, but I can't help but feel like I wasted my skills, time and money. A good combat system should encourage you to try out new things and get you out of your comfort zone, not terrify you to lose progression and forcing you to grind enemies to make up for a gamble on a new skill. The combat system also has a big problem with mobility, which affects fighting enemies and bosses greatly. You gotta block and dodge roll from the start, but using them is a nightmare. When you try to block attacks, there's no room for error as your block active time is 1/10 of a second, making blocking a skill of pure perfection, so logically dodging should be the better alternative, which it is when you get the chance to dodge roll. Every attack you do, be it normal or skill, freezes you in your place. You can't interrupt your own attack to dodge or block, creating an attack gap for your enemy. Some normal attacks turn into random longer combos, making the attack gap for your enemy even bigger. And that gap will be used by the enemy to unleash their stun locking combo, taking easily half of your health before you can even do anything about it. When fighting normal enemies, this isn't a big issue, but when it comes to certain bosses, it becomes a very frustrating issue. This is the issue I have with most Kingdom Hearts games, but Birth by Sleep is so far the worst in this aspect. Final bosses in Kingdom Hearts games are designed to be difficult in a very unfair exploiting way, and when there is a good boss battle, it gets ruined afterwards. There is one boss battle that I really enjoyed in Birth by Sleep, and you fight him multiple times throughout the game. His first phase is great, he has attack patterns with gaps that are small but fair. During the fight you trade blows, time skills and magic spells, and beating him was satisfying. It had a decent amount of difficulty, but more importantly it was fair, and that's what made it fun to beat it. However, this same boss also has a final boss version, which they completely ruined by removing everything that made it fair and replacing it with long stun lock combos that almost one-hit you. I understand to a certain degree that final bosses must be a challenge, but making it difficult by designing the fight to be unfair is a bad kind of difficulty. I got very annoyed by the unfair way this difficulty was created. I tried to do the fight the normal way, but I quickly gave up and just cheesed it. I don't get any satisfaction nor feeling of accomplishment in beating a boss designed this way. This design even ruins the interesting villains and stories surrounding these battles. And it's especially bad as these battles are your final moments of every playthrough, overshadowing the overall experience, which is very good for most of the time. Birth by Sleep's combat feels like a big step back from Kingdom Hearts 2's combat. While that combat system also had its fair share of issues, the boss battles were at least fun with its flashy, fast presentation and sometimes fun gimmick bosses. Birth by Sleep does have one big edge over Kingdom Hearts 2, which is breaking the original Kingdom Hearts formula. Kingdom Hearts is supposed to be a big crossover between Disney and Final Fantasy, with some own creations mixed in. Yet in Birth by Sleep, this crossover is not really present, as it seems like it tries to depend less on nostalgia created by Disney and depend more on its own creations. There are still Disney worlds in the game, but they are very short and to the point and are treated less like nostalgia references and more like part of the overall story. The Disney characters are used more as supporting side characters with a fair amount of impact on the overarching story. This gives more room to focus more on the unique Kingdom Hearts world and characters. For the first time I didn't feel like I was just watching a summary of the movie, but actually played a part in a short story that was going on in one of these Disney worlds. Some still followed the Disney movie story, but most of them actually had a completely different side story, making the Disney worlds a great improvement over the other games. This improvement came with a big compromise, as Final Fantasy was, except of one character, completely cut out of the game. Still, this is what made Birth by Sleep stand out to me, as it dared to do something that the previous game didn't do. And I think that is why I really enjoyed Birth by Sleep so much. I don't mind references or games playing on my nostalgic feelings. I mind it when those nostalgic feelings has to carry the game. Birth by Sleep felt like a true Kingdom Hearts game, while on paper it doesn't really follow the Kingdom Hearts formula, which weirdly enough made this experience a lot better. I understood the story and the direction it wanted to take, but it got contradicted constantly. There were still a lot of things I liked of the story, especially the idea of the previous events surrounding the fight between light and dark, and that there's so much more in the world of Kingdom Hearts that is unexplored. It also adds more context and value to the events of the other games, making me wonder how my experience would have been if I played Kingdom Hearts in chronological order, as Birth by Sleep could be played without the other Kingdom Hearts games. Overall, Birth by Sleep is a solid Kingdom Hearts game. This combat is still a problem, which worries me a bit, as after so many games, Square Enix still seems clueless on what the combat should be. But the story is good and I had a lot of fun seeing it unfold and creating connections to the other games. The music and voice acting wasn't really special and not really noteworthy compared to the other games, while the characters themselves had great design and were interesting, but the writing held them back from being great. It took them a couple of games, but they finally added a Disney world based on a Disney movie that I actually like. They more or less removed Final Fantasy from this game, but again, seeing a Kingdom Hearts game depending and trusting more on their own creations rather than on nostalgia created by Disney or Final Fantasy is something I'd rather have. And I do hope they will continue on doing that, as the series doesn't need to be carried by Disney nostalgia. And while my tug of war struggle with the series might continue, Birth by Sleep reminded me that it's worth it. And that concludes my review of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. I hope it was useful to you. If you already played the game, see this review as a discussion starter. You might agree or disagree with me, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the game down below. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, leave a like and consider subscribing. And with that all being said, I wish you a good day, and until next time.